Everyone. This is the Weber County Commission meeting on this, the 28th day of August, 2018 at 10 o'clock. Seated to my immediate left is Commissioner James Ebert. Seated to my right is Commissioner Scott Jenkins, and I'm Commissioner Jim Harvey. We welcome you all today. Thanks for being here. We'll have an invocation today. That'll be given by Shelley Hallisey. Then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance by Stacy Skeen. And our thought of the day will be given by Commissioner Jenkins. We'll go to that point. Shelley?
Our kind, gracious Father in heaven, we're so thankful for the opportunity we have to meet today in this commission meeting. We're thankful for the opportunity we have to come together to see county leaders leading our county in the direction that is best for our citizens. Please bless them that they are able to make thoughtful and considerate decisions with the right people and with the citizens in mind. We ask thee for these blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and for the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, my turn. It's good to be with you here today. We spent the day yesterday up at Wolf Creek in a charitable venture to try to help some charities in our county. And you wonder sometimes where government should be involved and where they shouldn't be involved. But I want you to know, when we were up there yesterday, playing golf and having a good time and raising money for these nonprofits that are in our county, it felt really good what we were doing. Everybody understood that we were just up there having a good time and giving money to charity. And there's lots of good things that happened. I was way impressed with the employees from Weber County who put that together and the job they did for us. And it felt really good when we got done at the end of the day to know that there was going to be a lot of money given to charity based on that. And I think that all the people who participated in it, who were in the county, enjoyed it also and felt really good about it. So I want to thank them and issue thanks to our employees and report to you that it was a good day. So that's my thought of the day.
That's awesome. Thank you. Just to reiterate one of the great points from yesterday is since Commissioners Bischoff, Burton, and Dearden started that tournament, Weber County has put back more than $250,000, not even including yesterday, back into local charities here in Weber County. And so that's notable. $250,000 makes a huge difference. Just reminding the public, we've moved things around on our commission agenda over the last couple of months so that the public doesn't have to wait for all the action items to have occurred first. The action items can occur now or can occur after we've heard from the public. So if there are things on the agenda that perk your interest that you'd like to talk about, we ask that you do that in item E of our agenda, which is next, but you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And so we're to item E on our public comments now, which is our public comments. Please limit those to 3 minutes, if you would. And you can come to the mic, state your name and your address, and then we'll start the clock. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Kerry Wayne. I live at 309 South, 1200 West, Marriott, Slaterville. And what I've come today to talk about is I am concerned because of the fact that 2 weeks ago I saw an article in the paper. A gentleman had wrote in with a letter to the editor, 75 years old, concerning the fact that the taxes were just making it impossible for him to live on his fixed income. And so I believe that the county has a responsibility to use those tax dollars wisely And recently, when the article came out about Commissioner Gibson receiving a $65,000 approximate retirement benefit, I was amazed. I have a degree, master's degree from Utah State University in business and human resource, so I'm not blind to how things work. But I thought an incentive policy for retirement in this economy, our company is right now actively paying recruitment fees to people because of the fact that we need workers. We need that. When I worked at Hill Air Force Base, I retired from there many times. We used those incentive policies for retirement to basically limit the head count of our employees so that we could make room and not lose the new people coming on board and facilitate the people who wanted to leave to move on. I was amazed at some of the money amounts that were getting given. The most I ever saw at the federal government level was $25,000. We're talking $65,000, and I'm amazed at that. I believe that the policy completely, I see that there's 3 people on your agenda today that are retiring, and they are receiving almost $180,000 worth of those retirement incentives. And it just, I think back to that gentleman, 75 years old, living on a fixed income, and I just don't see how we can keep doing this. We need to be responsible. Your public trust up there, I believe that that's what you need to do. I believe that giving people in Weber County the most for their money is what's important. Those tax dollars take away, for our seniors, takes away medications. It takes away food off their table. It takes away their housing. And we need to be responsible. And I would like to see that you eliminate that policy completely. The retirement incentive policy, as it reads, it needs to be done away with completely, or at least rewritten so that it only comes into effect occasionally, not all the time. It's become from a useful HR tool to now an entitlement, and I think it needs to be fixed. So, we okay on time, or do you need me to go away?
That's good. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Wayne.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wayne. And to your point, it's an amazing point. It's a point we had 3 years ago. We've already started that process. We implemented a 5-year hold harmless and a 5-year phase out to eliminate that liability. When I came into office, that liability was approximately $30 million. Our comptroller and Mr. Ricky Hatch expressed tremendous concern about that. It was a policy that made sense about 20 years ago, but it's not a policy that was working in today's environment. And we implemented that policy 2 years ago. We're in the process of continuing moving forward the elimination of that OPEB, or post-retirement benefit process. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. You good?
My name's Neil Hansen. I live at 1031 Capitol Street here in Ogden. I would like to also echo the comments of the previous gentleman. When you think about health insurance, I think it's a good policy to provide health insurance, but maybe not to pay out a cash lump sum, especially when a person is going to another government agency. He's probably going to be receiving the same health benefits that he was receiving here, and then not to ask him to repay that really goes to the lack of accountability of the tax dollars. I know that the state, when I was in the legislature, had approved for employees during an early out retirement was to pay up their health insurance for 5 years. That put the money back into the insurance pool, which then was able to give them the insurance. If we pay out and give the money out to them, that's less money going into the insurance pool, and then that's what causes the insurance to go up because you have less money there. So anyway, I think there needs to be some accountability. I believe that in the policy that if a person does have insurance after he leaves here, that the money needs to be repaid, and if it's not in there, then it should be in there. So anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen.
Well, you know, Neil, I checked with Commissioner Dearden yesterday to see if he got anything going out, and he didn't. So it was from then this way that it's happened. So it's a small group, and we are going to take action today to remedy that. And so I appreciate your comments. Thanks.
Thank you. We had another gentleman get up, Mr. Jim Carter, who worked for us as Parks and Recreation Director for a number of years. Mr. Carter, welcome. But for the record, let everybody know who you are and where you live.
Jim Carter. I live in Roy, Utah, 5308 South, 3275 West.
Good to see you, Mr. Carter.
Good seeing you too. I guess it's a bad time to follow up with these two gentlemen, but I am part of that retirement system that got the insurance for the 5 years. And I was very grateful for that. And now I'm asking if I could just use that to, if they'd go back and let me cash that out instead of taking it in an insurance policy. Because I'm finding it's hard to make ends meet with the way I, as you know, I have Parkinson's disease. And it's getting worse and worse, so I just ask if there's any way we can go back and I can have the option to cash out versus taking it through my medical plan. That's my...
And we can have you talk to Ms. Swan, but
Okay.
I can answer that really quickly. One of the issues that we're having, Mr. Carter, is decisions that were made 20 years ago that have a financial impact now that we would have never thought of. We would have never thought that medical benefits would go up between 3 to 10% a year.
Correct.
And those exponential costs become unsustainable for the county. And so we've started the process of becoming more financially responsible in addressing those types of benefits. The cash payout would be something that would, again, put us in a position financially where we would be unsustainable as a community. And that's why we have action item number 1 to start the process of finishing what we started in addressing those post-retirement benefits.
Okay.
So I know it's very difficult. I know many are challenged with different difficulties or trials or tribulations in their life.
Sure.
One of the reasons we've taken the steps we've taken as far as how we're retiring those benefits is to give a certain amount of time for those employees to make financial adjustments in their life as they prepare for retirement, as opposed to just cutting them off today. That does create a financial hardship for many employees.
Right.
But from the county perspective, it would just be financially unsustainable for us to just cash out all of those.
Mm-hmm.
And the little blurb we have right now on the radar that we're fixing today
Okay.
will be eliminated. So
Okay.
thank you, and thank you for your years of service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the commission? Please, sir, come forward and state your name and address.
I'm Randy Wynn, 2412 Barker Parkway in North Ogden. I've been active in North Ogden city politics, supporting and opposing certain things over the years. I would like to cut down my words somewhat. I would like to support totally the first two gentlemen that spoke. I do think it's appalling. I also support a 5-member council. I do respect what you guys do, and I don't have any accusations to make against any of you, but I think it's too much power into too few hands. I watch the city council in North Ogden, and oftentimes it needs 5 people to figure out the right answer. And I believe the same thing would be beneficial on this level. I, like the gentleman who spoke before me, wonder why it takes so long to rectify. By the way, I'd like to give a shout out to the Ogden Standard and Tim Vandernack, who follows these things, because I think they do a great service to our population to keep us informed of this stuff. Why does it take till 2026 to fix something that needed fixing 5 years ago, really? And I do think your humanity comes into play when you're facing the benefit that you're going to be able to get. It takes real courage, and I appreciate that you're exercising that courage, because it's very tempting. Everybody's human, and to sit there and say, I could be set up to get $65,000, even though it's the wrong thing for the citizens. I think the pay has got out of hand. I think this has just been a cash cow position to hold in county government, and I hope you guys have the courage to follow through and to straighten this thing out so that it's responsible to the citizens. You're not in wealthy communities here, by the way. In other words, and the comparison example has been given. And I agree, you guys are in a tier above almost everybody in the county. And so you're going to have to really pull your grit together to to sacrifice your benefits to do what's right for the county. I pray that you will, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen.
So, Mr. Nguyen, just so you know, we had a meeting just before we came into this meeting, and we called all our elected officials in that would benefit from this. And we told them that we were going to cut them off. And, you know, you worry about that because many of these are actually planning on these benefits. So we went ahead and told them we were going to cut them off today, and we informed them prior to this meeting, so it wasn't a big surprise. So we're moving that very way you're suggesting. Appreciate it. You bet.
Thanks for your trust.
And if I can just really quickly, this, so that the public knows and so that those of you who are in attendance today know, this is a policy. This is not a legislative action, but we're bringing it to this meeting, even though it's an administrative policy that we would handle just as 3 commissioners, because there's a tremendous amount of public interest in it, and it does affect the public. That allows us then to get the 3 commissioners along with the other elected officials together to have this administrative conversation about a specific policy within the county. So, and we agree with you. We have an understanding of the issues and concerns. From an elected official perspective, I will tell you that I think you would be surprised about the amount of concern that elected officials have in this and many other areas as far as public trust. And when we identify an issue like this, we took this initial action 2 years ago as we addressed it with the policy change for the employees. We were under the assumption that it would be applied to elected officials, but when we had our last elected official move on, it became apparent that that policy was not applied. And as you will hear later today, as Ms. Swan goes over the policy, that is when the process started to make this effectual change. So as soon as we were aware that it was still an eligible action to move on, we started the process of addressing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others in the audience that would like to address the commission? Seeing none, we'll close that part and move on to item F, for the consent items on our commission agenda. Commissioners, item number 1 is a request for approval of warrants 1530 to 1532 and 431-318 to 431-526 in the amount of $393,750.90. Item 2 is a request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $221,938.83. Item 3 is a request for approval of minutes for meetings held on August 21st, 2018. Item 4 is a request for the Weber Morgan Health Department for approval to surplus a 2003 white Ford Escape. Item 5 is a request for Weber County Tax Review Committee for approval of to waive taxes, penalty, and interest for 2016 and 2017 for the Lions Club, a tax-exempt entity. Item 6 is a request from the Weber County Tax Review Committee for approval of a refund on parcel 06-1980016 in the amount of $831.63. Item 7 is a request for approval of addendum to the commercial lease between Weber County Library, the main one, and Paper Lantern Investments, LLC, doing business as Bean Colada Coffee Cafe. Item number 8 is similar, a request for approval of addendum to the commercial lease between Weber County Library, the Pleasant Valley branch, between Paper Lantern Investments, LLC, doing business as Bean Colada Coffee Cafe. And item number 9 is a request for approval of the same thing, of the commercial lease between Weber County Library, the Southwest branch, and Paper Lantern Investments, LLC, doing business as Bean Colada Coffee Cafe. Just in the last, so just 7, 8, and 9, the main, the Pleasant Valley, and Southwest branch. Item number 10 is a request for approval of the following retirement agreements by and between Weber County and the following: Frosty McWilliams, Lisa Miners, and Lonnie Eskelson. Commissioners, any questions on our consent items today?
I do have a couple questions. Maybe our accountants can answer this. I do not recognize a couple of these payments. Merrick Sharp and Dome Corp. And where was the other one? Right there. that was the only one. You tell me what that payment's for?
I'll pull it up in just a minute. I don't recall.
Merrick Sharp and Dome Corp. It was right at the beginning of the very
Yeah.
page.
Let me pull it up, and then I'll let you know once I find it.
Oh, the other one was Diamond J Management LLC. That was the large one. I wanted to know what that was for.
I'll pull it up right now. It's a big file, so it'll probably take a minute.
Okay. I'm holding it up, I'm sorry.
While that's pulling up, would you like me to go over the kind of the summary?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you. Ricky, why don't you go over the summary while you're
Right.
pulling up?
We issued 25 purchase orders this week for $122,000. 25% of that amount, or $43,000, was for the health department, and that will go to purchase vaccines. 21%, or $25,000, is for the roads department, and that will purchase traffic paint. 15%, or $18,000, is for our IT department, and that will go primarily to software licenses and maintenance. And then 10%, or $12,000, is for the library, and that will go toward software licenses, literacy programs, and then books and materials. We issued 212 checks for $394,000 this week. 1/3 of that amount, or $129,000, was the Weber Housing Authority monthly housing payments. 11%, or $44,000, was our monthly motor vehicle payments that we make to the state through the collection of motor vehicle fees and taxes. And then 9%, we had two items for about $36,000. One was for the health department, and that went to purchasing a vehicle and some telecommunications equipment. And then for the library, books and materials, utilities, and maintenance. And then 5%, or $22,000, was for the ice sheet, and that was primarily utilities and maintenance as well. And Commissioner, you were talking about, was it American or Merrick? Dome?
Merrick Sharp Dome Corp. For $12,934.
Let's see, apologize. So Merrick, M-E-R-R-I?
M-E-R-C-K.
Oh, there we go, okay.
I like why Ricky is looking for that. I want to just make a comment to those present in the audience that in an effort to be more transparent, none of this information was available to any of you in the last, well, even a couple of years ago. Now through some of the things we've done, all this is available. He's pulling up stuff that all of you could pull up right now. And we're just waiting for that to load. So each payment's available to you. So that's just part of what this commission, this current body has done to be more open.
And if I'd done my homework before, he wouldn't have to be explaining this right now.
Okay,
Well,
so
there's lots and lots of.
There's
Merck,
none.
Merck Sharp and Dome, that was the purchase of vaccines for the health department.
Okay, and then the other one was that $52,000 for Diamond J Management.
Yes, I'm looking at that. That is a collection of,
I was wondering if that had to do with the fair.
let's see. Diamond J Management.
I didn't either.
It is a series of payments. The invoice description says September 18th, and it has the names of individuals. Sorry, let me keep looking here.
This one I didn't recognize. You know, you get to a point where you recognize these guys that are on your payment schedule and you don't question them, but when you get one like that and you don't recognize it and it's $52,000, you kind of like to know what's happening.
Weber Housing payments.
Weber Housing.
Yeah, so that's payments made on behalf of, to the Weber. Well, it's made on behalf of the Weber Housing Authority. So we're actually we're just a pass-through entity for that.
Great. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Sorry, Mr.
Oh.
Chair.
No, that's great. Commissioners, I'd entertain any other questions pertaining to any of the budget items or the items listed on the consent items.
I need to recuse myself from voting on that Plain City Lions Club.
Very good. What we're going to do then is,
I'll make a motion, we adopt the consent items as read.
the chair would entertain you to make a substitute motion that you adopt all of those except for number 5 right now.
Why don't we just adopt all of them and he can abstain?
Either way.
I'd like to be on record that where he's at.
Okay, I'll make a motion, so moved.
So move that we have all the consent items except number 5 to consent. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, now, thank you. That motion carries. Then we'll now go to the consent item number 5.
I'll make a motion, we adopt consent item number 5.
Motion accepted, and I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. That item carries as well. Thank you. We're going to move now to action items, which is a request from Weber County Human Resources Department for approval of policy 4-300, insurance and retirement benefit policy. Our administrative services director, Ms. Sarah Swan, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So this policy outlines our insurance and retirement benefits. The bulk of the policy is the same as it was before. There's no major changes to anything, but it really outlines it for employees where before the 5-year phase out wasn't actually in written form. So now if someone has a question, they can come to this policy and get clarification. The one major change that you'll see is the elected official provision. And I wanted to give you a little bit of backstory so you can see where this came from. So in June of 2018, Commissioner Gibson's agreement went through. And as I sat here in commission meeting, I leaned over to one of my staff members and asked what it was. And she said it was his retirement, per se, agreement. And my response was that he wouldn't receive it because he was going to another agency where he had health insurance. Because for employees, if they leave employment with the county, or if they retire from the county, they elect the 5-year benefit and they go to another agency that offers them insurance at less than $200 per month. They have to cancel their benefit with the county. So it was my general assumption that Mr. Gibson would cancel that. It would cancel out at that time. It was at that point during the meeting that she informed me that there was a special provision for elected officials that was put into place in October of 2014. Unfortunately, this policy that was put into place wasn't something that was in our personnel manual. It wasn't something that you could find online. It was something that was done and was kept somewhere. So it wasn't something I was aware of, and that probably many others in the county were not aware of either. The practice is not equitable. We acknowledge that. Immediately following that meeting, I sent an email to Chris Crockett to remedy the situation or to ask him how we could work to remedy it. Chris then came up to my office and let me know that he also was on the same page as me and that he was going to come up and speak to me as well. And then we started to put together how we could remedy the situation and what we could do to enact a policy that was more equitable for elected officials and employees. In my opinion, elected officials should have no better benefits than employees. We should all be treated equally. And so this is our effort to remedy that situation. Unfortunately, we can't change what's happened in the past, but we can try to make the right decisions going forward. So this provision says that anyone who takes office from this point forward will receive no benefit that's greater than any of the other employees. They'll be allowed the same benefit as employees. And then for anyone who's in office now, we tried to recognize that some of them may have perceived this benefit, that they could be counting on it. So we did a 5-year phase out, and it follows the exact phase out that we did for our 5 years for employee health insurance. So until December 31st of 2021, this benefit is available. And then from 2021 to 2026, it phases out at 5% per year. And on December 31st of 2026, there is no longer a benefit to elected officials. Here's what I want to say. This benefit is here, but elected officials have the option of taking the medical insurance. So if they needed insurance, they could take the medical insurance for 5 years. They don't have to take the cash payout. They can also decline the benefit entirely. So if any of you, I'll just use you because you're elected officials, if any of you leave this to go to other employment and you don't need it, you can decline the benefit. So I hope that people exercise the right and do what's best for them. But I do want to make that clear that not everyone needs to take the cash payout. Questions?
I appreciate that you felt unsettled. That speaks to your character as far as being our Administrative Services Director. And I have tremendous trust in the professionalism of Mr. Crockett. This is the right thing to do, as our employees and the elected officials should be treated the same. As a corporation, we have a group of benefits that other places have, and some that don't, but we're moving in the right direction. And as to reiterate, we can't change the past, but we have the power to affect the future, and that's what we want to do today. And I appreciate you moving forward with this. Thank you. Commissioners, I'd entertain any other comments from either one of you.
I just, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I should ask.
No, you're good.
When I found out about this, I called Sarah immediately, and she almost knew what I was thinking, because she answered, "Don't worry," she says, "we're working on it right now." She said, "I know what you're talking about." It was like, okay, Sarah, you're on top of it, and you always are. I appreciate that. It'd be nice if we could cut this thing right off, but I have to agree that we have some responsibilities as a corporation, as a county, and I'm not overly happy about that, but this is something that we feel we've got to do. And so I'm ready. I'm very supportive of this.
Commissioner Ebert, any comments?
Well, I would just like to express my appreciation to Sarah. From the time that we started working on this, the amount of work to track down exactly how this happened and what the actual benefits are. And then working back again with Dave Wilson initially about two and a half years ago, and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do to address the financial instability we had with the OPEB benefits as a whole. And I'm appreciative that you came up with a resolution that is very reflective of what we've already done, kind of retroacting it back to when we made those initial changes to the employees. So there is quite a 5-year hold harmless in this, but it probably is a little more equitable that as the employees made that initial sacrifice, now the elected officials are also. So, you know, there's never 100% fix that fixes everything, but I think it starts the process of creating more equity within the benefit package for both employees and elected officials, but also addressing the needs that Mr. Hatch and the comptroller had with financial stability for the county as a whole. You know, we are in a very interesting time right now as we try to attract and retain employees, and benefits and salary are always at the forefront. So how do you balance those two? And I think you've done a very good job in creating a benefit package that accomplishes that. So thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Hatch.
Thank you.
And may I add one more? Chris, thank you for all the work that you put into this. Chris went all the way back and researched things in case law to help us understand, you know, when you become vetted or vested in a process and what that means. So again, tremendous amount of work put into this. That's why you want to do it right the first time. And that's why it's taken several months. So thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Jenkins?
Sarah, I just want to ask you one more question, or have you respond to this. It was questioned a little earlier about the 3 that we were approving benefits for today, and how it was in the $180,000 range. Can you explain to us when that benefit package, that option ends, and when this process of reducing these benefits, these rich benefits, actually started?
Sure. So the process, depending on the employee, obviously the benefits are a little bit different depending on whether they've taken the health insurance option or whatever. So, but it'll start reducing on December 31st of 2021. This is for employees as well. And then it reduces by 5% each year. The benefit is completely eliminated by December 31st of 2026. So employees will no longer receive that 5-year benefit at all after that.
Okay, but these were benefits that started when?
when the change was made. Do you know when that change was made?
Well, did this start though when they were first employed?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It's been in county practice for
Right.
years, and then the 5-year phase out took place when they realized there was a problem. And
So these are 30, 40-year-old benefit
oh,
packages
absolutely.
that we're dealing with here that were started years and years ago, and
Yep.
they just got out of hand.
Absolutely.
We're now trying to get them back under control. Very good.
And
We are getting them under control. I don't want to.
And to qualify for the benefit, you had to have been employed with the county prior to January 1st, 2008. That was an additional requirement.
So this was actually a multi-step process. It actually started in 2008, where they eliminated, they grandfathered, then they froze the rate, and then we passed the phase out. So this has been a process for a while.
And you're seeing those large payments as a result of this, is what we did. We froze the leave for some people, the grandfathered leave, so you're seeing those payouts because they had that leave on the books, and now they're being paid out when they retire. So unfortunately, you will see the payments for a time forward, but until 2026, really.
So, did other counties do the same thing? Do you have any idea? Because many other counties had these same kind of rich benefits, and they did doing away with them as well. Do you happen to know?
That I don't know, no.
Okay. Interesting to know that.
Yeah, again, there's been transition in benefits over the last 5 years. Some communities, organizations, counties, and or cities are now compressing pay scales instead of offering larger benefit packages and doing other things. So, I mean, there's got to be a little bit of, you got to be a little nimble to be competitive within that market as compensation focuses change over time. For a lot of years, government was really looked at as stable with a retirement plan. And now that has started to change, where retirement is really multimodal, so to speak, is however you want to create your retirement plan. But salary is now really the focus, and so again, we're changing with the times.
The commissioners will, the business of hiring new talent, no matter what, whether you're in a county government or whether you're in a private sector, it doesn't matter, has changed, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. So is the business of retirement packages. We're evolving. The key role is we're making effect. We're taking responsibility for elected officials in the past. We're also affecting future by making this decision and policy today. So commissioners, with no more comment, I'm going to entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the new policy 4-300 for the county.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. If there's no more discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to page 2, which item number 2 we're going to pull from the agenda until we get a little more information. Item number 3 is a request for approval of a resolution of the county commissioners. Weber County appointing a member to the Little Mountain Service District. Our presenter is Ms. Stacy Skeen. Ms. Skeen.
Good morning. There
Good morning.
There are 4 vacancies for the Little Mountain Service District, and it was posted, the vacancies were posted as pursuant to Utah Code, and I received 1 application for the vacancies. It's from Randall Renolfson, who has been serving on this service area district, and so at this time we're just asking for him to be reappointed, and then the vacancy has been reposted for the additional 3 vacancies.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Skeen?
Yes, Chair. You know, this is this is out in my neck of the woods, so I've talked to a lot of people about this. And, you know, this is a small little sewer district out there, the Little Mountain, and nobody wants to serve on it. So these are tough positions to fill right here. So I'm excited we got somebody that'll serve on here, so I'd make a motion we approve this.
I have a motion
It's a resolution 41.
It is a resolution. Thank you, Fatima, for keeping us straight. Resolution number 41, a motion for resolution 41. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. I'll call for the vote. Fatima, go ahead. You call for the vote.
Commissioner Ebert?
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Aye.
And Chair Harvey?
Aye. Resolution 41 carries, and now we'll move on to item number 4, which is another resolution.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
may I, point of personal privilege, may I revert back to item number 1? I'd like to change my vote to an abstention. There may be some individuals that believe I may have a conflict of interest. So for just purposes of that, I would like to abstain from that vote on the record, and I apologize. I should have caught that before.
With I'll recognize the abstention. The motion still carries. Item G1 still carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 4, which is a request for approval of a resolution of the County Commissioners of Weber County appointing a member of the Central Weber Sewer Improvement District. Ms. Skane.
So with the resignation of Commissioner Carrie Gibson from the County Commission, Weber County can request that the Central Weber Board of Trustees declare a vacancy on their board in which Carrie Gibson sat on their board. So that was done, and a meeting was held by the Central Weber Sewer Improvement District to declare the midterm vacancy, which allows Weber County Commission to appoint one of you 3 to fulfill his term, or to fulfill his seat. It is recommended that Commissioner James Ebert fulfill his position and fulfill the remainder of the term, which would expire in December 2018 this year.
The recommendation for this resolution number 42 is that Commissioner Ebert fill the seat or the vacancy until the end of the year.
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Have a motion? And I'll second it, and since it's you, yes, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's a resolution. Sorry. There we go again.
Commissioner Ebert?
I'll abstain.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Aye.
And Chair Harvey?
Aye. Thank you. Another resolution here, Fatima. Shelley Hallisey. It's a request for approval of a resolution of the County Commissioners of Weber County reappointing members to the Recreation, Arts, Museum, and Parks Board, or the RAMP Committee.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's getting time to gear up and get started with RAMP. Today I'd like to suggest that we appoint Danette Pell, or that you appoint Danette Pulley as our RAMP chair, and Ann Perry as the chair of the Arts and Museums Commission, and Marisha Boscator reappointed as the Parks and Recreation chair. And then we would reappoint Steve Crane to the Advisory Board and the Arts and Museums Committee, and Jeremy Dunn be reappointed to the Advisory Board and the Recreation and Parks Committee.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions?
I do have.
Okay.
Shelley, is this one of your appointment?
No, they're 3-year appointments.
3-year appointment.
Actually, the chair is a 1-year appointment, but to be on the RAMP committee is a 3-year appointment.
And the chair, they've been there
Yes.
for some time.
Yeah, Danette is in her second. You can have 2 3-year terms, and Danette is in her second term.
Very good. That's what I wanted to know.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I will make that motion.
Okay, I recognize the motion as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the RAMP Committee. It's a resolution.
Commissioner Ebert?
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Aye.
And Chair Harvey?
Aye. Resolution 43 passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 6 is a request for approval of bylaws for the Ogden Musical Theater. Mr. Crockett.
Thank you, Commissioners. A few years ago, the Ogden Musical Theater was created as an advisory group to assist in the performances at the Perry's Egyptian Theater. Since that time, they've had performances of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and then the recent production of Annie, Get Your Gun. When an advisory group is put together, we find it's helpful to put together bylaws, a form of instruction manual, just how to conduct board meetings, membership composition to assist. So really what this is just standard bylaws that we put together for all of our groups.
Fantastic. These performances are bringing quality musical theater back into Ogden has been absolutely phenomenal, and I know some of that's been led by you, Commissioner Ebert, and I appreciate that, and by our great team, Cassie Bybee as the general manager of the Perry's Egyptian Theater and Ogden Eccles Conference Center with Marty and Jennifer, too. Thank you very much. So, Commissioners, do you have any comments on this particular item, item number 6? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion we approve the new bylaws for the Ogden Musical Theater.
Have a motion?
Second.
And a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item number 7, Commissioner Ebert, and we're going to also add, before you do that, request for approval of the contract by and between Weber County and the DHO Group for a public relation, marketing, and communication consultant. Before you, Commissioner Ebert, Chris Crockett, will you take a couple of minutes, please?
Sure. Commissioners, before you is an agreement for professional services for public relations, marketing, and communication consultant services for Weber County. Previously, the county has utilized the DGO Group to provide those services. At the expiration of their contract, the county issued an RFP to solicit interested parties to bid to obtain that contract. 2 groups submitted responses, and the DGO Group came out as the party. That's the group that scored the highest. So pursuant to that, we have drafted a contract for them to serve as a non-exclusive full-service branding, marketing, media, and communications consultant for the county. The term of the agreement is for 1 year with payment up to $95,000 for that year, with an option for the county to extend that contract for an additional up to three additional years.
Thank you, Mr. Crockett. Commissioner Ebert.
So I believe we've had over the last 4 or 5 months several presentations by the DGO Group on what we've accomplished over the last year. Again, I think from a county perspective, there's been a change in focus and direction. The county is an entity that is competing against other entities across the Wasatch Front, if not across the country, if not across the world. We have companies here from all over the world, from Germany, Amer Sports, and so we have a market sometimes we're not aware of. And we identified early that there was a need for branding, marketing, and better communications. And we went to a whole process, again, through RFP, identified a company. We've had that company now work with us for a year, and we've had, I think, tremendous success in moving the needle as far as how Weber County and Ogden are looked at. And we are starting to feel the benefits of that communication modeling. So I feel comfortable that this is a valuable part of what we're doing as a county. The DGO Group went through the process and was selected, and so I would present the DGO Group as the company that we'll use to continue moving our communication forward.
Commissioner Jenkins, any comments?
I do have. When I campaigned for this position, I thought we should do away with this group and go in a different direction. Man, I'm sorry. But in the meantime, I've been pleasantly surprised with what happens with this group and the amount of information that they get out to our citizens about what's happening in the county. And so I told Sasha the other day that I was going to support this resolution, that I absolutely want to get closer involved with this for this next year and see how it goes.
Very good.
But I'm impressed with what she's done.
Thank you.
If I may add really quickly before you finish, Chair.
Commissioner Ebert.
Communication isn't something that happens by chance. If we want to use the model that's been used for 50 years, there's only one model out there. That model does not always reflect the values and or the messaging that we're looking for. With the advent of social media and other platforms, that has allowed us then to reach out in different directions. The issue then is, how do you access those platforms? How do you create a viewership? And then how do you create the message? So this first year has been tremendously valuable for the county, because we have really strengthen that foundational platform that we can communicate out to the members of this community, but also along the Wasatch Front and again across the country. And then partnering with other platforms through our contractors to accomplish that. And we have seen the success as we looked at our Uinta fire, and other emergency or situations where we needed to communicate information. Now is the next step on what we're communicating, why we're communicating, how we're communicating, and we will work that into branding and marketing to really strengthen our community. The one thing in economic development that we have not been as successful as we would like to be at this point is who are we, what is our brand, what are we selling? And you will see that start to happen over this next year. We're super excited about the direction we're going. So again, Mr. Chairman, I will give you accolades for understanding and bringing the need to communicate better to our citizens on a whole, but also then understanding that Weber County is a corporation and it does compete with other counties along the Wasatch Front. And if you don't believe me, look at the population growth for Davis, Salt Lake, and Utah County. Look at their GDP growth, look at their workforce development, and look at their median income. We are in a competition, and we need to step up to the plate, and we're doing that. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioners Jenkins, Commissioner Eberts, thank you for your comments before I call for the vote. Respecting the comments that were made during our public comments, we had an opportunity, and we have a responsibility to be more transparent. We could do that by hiring a person, and by the time you pay a team, or by the time you pay the benefits, it's an average wage. Or we can hire a whole team. This has proven to be a more effective way to do business by hiring a team and not getting into benefits and the rest of the things. It's a better decision the way we're going. I compliment both of you for being objective and finding out for yourself what the right thing to do. And I'm comfortable by which the process has gone forward and that there's been a competition in that process. And so we keep our costs manageable and responsible. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for item number 7.
I'd make a motion we pass item 7.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second for a contract between Weber County and the DCO Group for Public Relation Marketing Communication Consultant. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 8. Mr. Anderson, this is a request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and EPIC Engineering, PC, for SWAP, or SWIP, the Stormwater Prevention and Services. Mr. Anderson.
Good morning, Commissioners. And I appreciate you spelling that out, and they go by EPIC Engineering.
Thank you.
This is the contract that we have with EPIC, and the next one, JUB, covers the same services. We went through a procurement process, and we were able to get the top 2 teams on board to do what's called SWIP inspections. These are stormwater prevention pollution inspections. We typically had our interns doing these inspections. The problem is the interns would come and go. We'd have to retest, we'd have to rehire, retrain. And by getting these groups on board, we're able to, with our fee we have in place, we can pay for these inspections and management for this work. So it's a very exciting thing. We haven't done this before. It's a new thing. We do have them on board as needed basis, meaning if it doesn't work out and doesn't work well for us, then we'll move in another direction. But we're excited for this opportunity to see what it can provide for the county.
Thank you. You know, a lot of times people say, why is it so much more expensive nowadays? Why are building permits and things like this more expensive? Well, we didn't have stormwater prevention back even 10 years, well, maybe 10, but not 15 and 20 and 30 and 50 years ago. This is all something that we've learned and grown. We can control things better. This helps keep when people talk about we've got to have clean water and clean air and do things better, all this stuff matters, and this is something that's now required, and that we're happy to keep the laws and rules. Commissioners, entertain comments.
I do want to comment on that. When you drive through western Weber County, you notice great big drain ditches on both sides of the road that people drive in all the time. Well, they're already in place, so we've been doing stormwater ever since the beginning, but it's just in the form of great big ditches. Well, as subdivisions come in and we incorporate and do other things, those ditches need to be closed. And this is how we do it. This is the money that we put together to close and pipe and take care of the ditches in our roads, the edges of our roads,
Yeah.
where the ditches are.
Good, very good. Commissioner Ebert, any comments?
Just 2 seconds. First, thank you, Jared. We've been talking about this for a while. You don't build parking lots for the day after Christmas, right? You build parking lots for your average use of those parking lots. We can't build staff for our maximum demand. And so having the foresight to say, let's contract when we have a higher demand so we keep our response time to those customers short, and then we'll use those contractors when we need them instead of adding staff that may or not be busy, I just think goes to credibility to you as far as looking out for taxpayer dollars and understanding how to move the county forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jared. Great job.
Thank you. Commissioners, if there's no more questions for Mr. Anderson, none being heard, I'll entertain a motion for item number 9.
I'll make second.
We have a motion and a second for, excuse me,
Item
I
8.
misspoke. It's item number 8.
Yeah, item 8. So moved.
So, thank you. And a second,
Still seconded.
thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Thanks for keeping me straight. I'll call for the vote. Yeah, no kidding.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Aye. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item number 9, Mr. Anderson. This is a contract by between Weber County and JUB Engineers, Inc. for the same inspection services or something similar. Can you explain the difference, please?
There isn't a difference, just accept that it's a different firm. So we have the ability to choose from two firms depending on their availability. Yep.
Commissioners, I will say that I'm somewhat familiar with JUB Engineers, as they were the ones when this SWPPP first came into being out at the fairgrounds. We were proactive in mitigating the stormwater runoff out there as it related to animal waste, salt that's being stored, and other things. We complied, and so they did a great job. And so I can give them a mark of approval personally for my.
I'll make a motion.
Great, I'd entertain a motion. Oh, look at that, we've got
Approve the
one.
contract by between Weber.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item number 10.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, very much. Item number 10, Mr. Burton. This is consideration and action on a request to amend and reinstate the zoning development agreement previously approved as contract 2012-230, which affects approximately 174 acres located at approximately 3300 North Wolf Creek Drive. The request is that Weber County consider reinstating the agreement and extend the project completion date 10 years to June 30, 2028. Mr. Burton.
Should I have made that title a little shorter?
You could, yeah, that was a long one, but that's okay. Thank you very much. I'm interested to hear what you've got to say on
Yes.
this.
Hello, Commissioners. So
Hello.
this request is a request from the developer known as Eden Valley Development, LLC, to amend and reinstate a development agreement that was previously approved as contract number 2012-230. Under that agreement, it allowed this developer to develop 96 lots up in the Ogden Valley, just south of Wolf Creek area, and allowed him to develop those within 5 years. This agreement has since expired. He has not developed those 96 lots. He's requested an extension of that, and we've proposed 10 years instead of the 5 years. We feel 10 years is a good time frame for him to get those 96 lots developed. Let me go ahead and give you what the Planning Commission recommends in this case, because we did bring it to them. On May 22nd, 2018, the Ogden Valley Planning Commission recommended approval of the request to amend and reinstate the Eden Valley Development Agreement that was previously approved as contract 2012-230. I should state as well, with this new agreement, the developer is proposing an emergency access easement through his property. He's also proposing a public trail easement through the property. Continuing on with the Planning Commission recommendation. The planning recommendation is to renew the agreement for 10 years, expiring on June 30th, 2028. The agreement will include the applicant providing the temporary emergency easement and pedestrian trail as shown on the exhibit within the development agreement. This recommendation is based on the following findings and conditions. I'll read the findings. First, that 1, the amendment and reinstatement will promote public health, safety, and welfare by guaranteeing that a secondary access is provided for the Greater Wolf Creek Resort community residents. 2, the amendment will not negatively impact the general area or surrounding properties and uses. 3, the development agreement, including a zoning change as part of the development agreement. Therefore, it's appropriate to have an expiration date for the development agreement because of that zoning change. These were the Planning Commission findings. Their one condition was this: to enhance public safety, the developer will provide a temporary emergency access easement through the subject property as well as a public pedestrian trail. The road surface of the temporary easement is required to meet the Weber County Fire District standards until the remaining development occurs and results in a fully improved street and pedestrian trail. The developer is required to improve the emergency access easement within 6 months from the time the extension and reinstatement is granted by the County Commission. So we've developed this agreement based on the Planning Commission findings and conditions, and also with the developer's consent there. And the developer is here if you have questions for him, or if you have any for me.
If there's any questions for Mr. Burton or the developer?
I don't want to talk to the developer. I talked to him yesterday. I'm just teasing. Okay. Here we go. I'm just teasing. This was just an expiration of a previous agreement because they didn't build within 5 years or meet it within 5 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
The question I have for you, there was nothing waived at the end of that expiration in lieu of another project somewhere along for density or access or anything else. It was just an expiration.
Correct. Just an expiration. This will keep that same density that was in the previous contract.
Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner?
Motion to approve.
I'll accept
Second.
that motion and that second. All in favor? Aye. Aye, that motion carries. Thank you very much. Commissioners, I have a request for a motion, or I'm requesting a motion to adjourn our public meeting and convene a public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye, that motion carries. We're now into a public hearing. This is a public hearing to discuss and take action on a proposal to amend the following section of Weber County Code, Standards for Detached Single-Family Dwellings, which is Chapter 108, Title 15, to add standards for a single-family dwelling with secondary kitchens. Our presenter today is Ms. Rhonda Kippen. Ms. Kippen, welcome.
Welcome, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Good morning. And
good morning.
We'd like to put as much in that description for Commissioner Ebert. Yeah, we'd like to put the entire discussion right in that, so you know exactly what you're getting. You should be able to make your decision. No,
so basically, your presentation, Rhonda, is you want to have you've got something so you can add an Airbnb or a VRBO. Is that it?
No, actually, to give a little bit of history to this, it's been Weber County's policy that whenever a home is constructed, a lot of people have secondary kitchens in their houses. You know, they have kitchenettes and different things like that. And so it's something that we've allowed, but what we actually do is whenever you have a kitchen upstairs and kitchen downstairs, that one of those floors could be turned into a secondary living space. And so we now have just gone from a single family dwelling to a multi-family dwelling. And so, which have different ratings, are allowed in certain zones, are not allowed in other zones. And so when we are evaluating our building permits and we see a building that has two kitchens in it, we just have them sign a second kitchen covenant stating that they will not rent out the other floor as an apartment. We do have an alternative or an accessory apartment conditional use, so that if somebody does want to come forward and do that, they can do that. It's a separate process. And so this is just basically This is a staff-initiated text amendment, and it is in response to the House Bill 232 that was a recent change with the state in staff spring legislative changes. And it says if a land use regulation does not plainly restrict a land use application, the land use authority shall interpret and apply the land use regulation to favor the land use application. We did not have anything in our code that spoke at all about second kitchens at all. And so we felt that we needed to add some standards for a second kitchen. And so we do have a chapter that goes over some criteria for single-family dwellings and how, certain things that they have to meet, roof pitches, different criteria. And so we are proposing, and we've taken it to both the Planning Commission in the Ogden Valley and the Western Weber. And the Planning Commissions are recommending that we approve the text as included in Exhibit A, and the red Exhibit A is the clean exhibit, and Exhibit B is the markups. I don't know if you wanted me to go over each one of the markups with you if you have questions pertaining to them, but basically this just allows us by code to require the second kitchen covenant. So it's been a policy that we've required the second kitchen covenant, but by adopting this section 4 in our single family dwellings section of our ordinance, it will allow us to require the second kitchen covenant.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Kippen. Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Kippen?
We're just looking at setting some public hearing dates, correct, to review this?
We actually, this is the public hearing, so.
Have you taken this out to the general public?
To the general public, yes, at both the Ogden Valley and the Western Weber, and so we held public hearings at both of those. And this is a public hearing, so and it's up to you guys if you would like to do a first and a second reading on this. So.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Kippen.
Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Kippen? Great, Mr. Burton. Thank you, Ms. Kippen. We're going to invite you to come. This is a public hearing to consider and take action on a request to vacate a public utility and drainage easement located along the western property line of lots 33 through 43 in the Country Meadows subdivision. Mr. Burton?
I'm back. This title, this request might seem familiar to you. It was on the agenda last month, and it was tabled. A gentleman from Royce showed up and said that he would rather have the entire easement vacated completely, so not just by lot, or not have it vacated at all. So the applicant, bless his heart, he went and to each of the lot owners on his block and got them to sign as also requesters of vacating their easements as well. So that entire easement is being proposed to be vacated. So to be more specific, I'm not sure if you have your staff reports with you, but I do have just an image of the subdivision plat in there, and it just kind of shows you lots 33 through 43. There's the western property line there. The 7-foot easement is proposed to be vacated. The original request was to vacate this easement for just Mr. Rowe, just his lot, but the item was tabled until we could get that figured out. So he's proposing, and so are the rest of the owners, proposing to vacate that entire easement on that block of lots 33 through 43. We go ahead and just give you, the staff recommendation is to approve that vacation of that 7-foot public utility and drainage easement for lots 33 through 43 within Country Meadows subdivision, and that is by ordinance.
Very good. Commissioner Jenkins, question?
Yeah, questions I have is, it's a drainage easement. Do they not drain into it?
They don't.
How come?
I'm not sure. When this original request came in, we wanted to make sure that there was no drainage there. So we reached out to our engineering division who made site visits and confirmed that there is no drainage there.
Okay, so then you see no reason to maintain this or to not keep the easement in place?
Correct.
Okay.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Burton? I'll move to item number 4, Commissioners. So we're going to go into public comments on either item, the one that was presented by Ms. Kippen, which is the one for, the one for the double kitchens, or this one to vacate the easement. Any public comments related to either one of those? None being recognized, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing and convene a public hearing. I have a motion. Second. And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, let's take action now, Commissioners, on item number 6. Both of those, one would be, it says 2 action and 3 action. One is on each one of the 2. Can I, any comments on either one of the 2 before we take action?
Could I just ask Rhonda just a quick question? The reason you're bringing this forward is we are coming in compliance with House Bill 232, correct?
That is correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
we're just meeting the state standard now on defining and having.
Correct.
Okay, cleaning up. Okay.
Yep, correct. So every year when they do that, we actually have to go through our land use code and make sure that we are in compliance, and this was one area that we were not. So, thank you.
So, Rhonda, while you're here, I sat through your hearings on this, so I understand where you're going, and I agree with this. If I'm in a single-family residential area, I don't want duplexes all over the place either. But on the other hand, if I want to build 2 or 3 or 4 kitchens in my house, that's my business because
Exactly.
it's my house. And so this doesn't prevent that. All it does is prevent duplexes.
Correct.
Where they're not zoned.
Yeah, and then say you want to have your mother-in-law live in your basement, you come forward and you do an it's called an accessory apartment conditional use permit, and we do have limitations to that, but then we are able to evaluate parking and different nuisances that go along with having more than one family living in a home. And so it just allows us to have that additional layer. But right now, we're just evaluating it as one family, not as duplexes.
Great.
Very good.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion on item number 6.
I'll make a motion.
Ordinance 12.
Ordinance 12. That we approve the proposal to amend the following sections of Weber County as listed under 6.2.
We have just 6.2.
Do you want to do both in one resolution, Fatima?
Yeah, we can.
And I'll also add approval of the request to vacate the public utility as listed under 6.3.
Very good. Thank you. I have a motion.
Second.
And a second.
Okay. Commissioner Ebert? Aye. Commissioner Jenkins?
Aye.
And Chair Harvey?
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. We're now to Commissioners' comments on item number I of our agenda. Commissioners, any comments? I have but one. Sorry. But you know, sometimes when you walk in a building like this and you turn a corner, you can't see around the corner. So you bump into people. My point is not traffic flow. The other day when I was on the 2nd floor and rounding the building to go out to the parking garage, I run into a developer that I knew from a long time ago who called me about 6 months ago, or about March, and said, I'm going to do kind of an internal audit or report. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to report to you the type of service that I'm receiving from building permits and doing construction and doing development. When I turned the corner, he says, hey, I've got something I need to talk to you. And I thought, oh, here we go. He said, you know, I've been doing developing now for nearly 20 years. I just left that office. And I want to tell you that I haven't had a better experience anywhere at any time. And he would have told me. He tells me all the time how the cow chews the cabbage, but this was a time for him to be very critical, but he was incredibly complimentary. To the staff that's here, and especially to you, Mr. Wilkinson, Mr. Grover, since December of last year, you have soared. I'm especially grateful to each of your leadership and what you're doing down there and creating an environment where it's more healthy, that pours to the public, where we get these chance meetings and such a positive comment. I'm only sorry that the press didn't cover that today. But that will explain to those of us here in the room why we go from 1.75 4.5 to 4.1% growth. That will explain why we don't need to raise taxes. That will explain why we have some surplus and we can fill the holes that were left by some of the decisions made by a previous commission. I compliment you, staff, on what you're doing, all of you, in your respective departments. And it's an honor for me to work with you right now. I appreciate it. Commissioners, entertain a motion for item J.
Commissioners, I'm sorry to delay the adjournment of the meeting.
Okay, you're delaying the adjournment of the meeting. Go ahead.
Delayment.
Mr. Crockett.
There's a matter, and it's time sensitive, and I just want to make sure that proper procedure is followed.
Thank you.
With regards to action item number 1, with the request to abstain from voting on the matter that was made by Commissioner Ebert, there's a specific procedure that has to be followed if that's actually going to
Thank you very much, Mr. Crockett, for keeping us legal. What's your recommendation?
So there's 2 provisions in the County Commission's rules of procedure that are applicable. The first is found in short form, a motion to reconsider must happen first. And then what happens after that is the commissioners one of the commissioners who feels that they have a conflict has to declare that. And then the majority of the remaining commissioners has to consent.
May I make a motion to reconsider?
Would you like me to go through the procedure, just make sure we get it right?
I'd like to, since you appreciate that. So there needs to be a motion to reconsider. Is that correct?
Yes. A motion to reconsider requires a simple majority vote to pass. There are 2 special rules that apply to the motion to reconsider. One is a timing issue. It has to be made today. It cannot be made at a subsequent meeting. Second, it can only be made by a member of the commission who voted in the majority of the original motion. The motion to reconsider may be seconded by any member of the commission regardless of how they voted on the original motion. The purpose of the rule is finality. If a member of the minority could make a motion to reconsider, then the item could be brought back again and again, which would defeat the purpose of finality. Since there's a question as to whether Mr. Ebert's vote would be in the majority or against or for, I would say that the motion to reconsider would come from someone else.
Good. Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to reconsider.
Very good. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Jenkins there. I'd make a motion that we reconsider, or having voted in the affirmative, I make a motion that we reconsider our actions on, was it item 2?
Item 1.
Item 1 of the agenda today, which was Weber County Human Resources Department for approval of 4-300.
Having voted to the affirmative of that as well, I will second that motion. We have now open to reconsider. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Aye.
And now the procedure for that must be followed if a commissioner wants to seek recusal. Unless a unanimous vote is required for passage of the motion, a simple majority vote determines whether a motion passes or fails. Unless a member of the county commission seeks recusal from voting on any question where the vote would constitute a conflict of interest, and that recusal is consented to by a majority of the remainder of the county commission, all members of the county commission, including the chair, shall vote upon every question, ordinance, or resolution.
Very good. Commissioners.
I would make a motion that we approve item number 2.
I have a motion, and I will second that motion that we, I will second the motion.
And I will recuse myself. I will be eligible for the benefit under the policy, and so I will recuse myself in this vote.
Now the question would be, do the other 2 commissioners consent to that recusal?
I consent to the recusal.
Same here.
Okay.
Now, do we need to bring the vote? Do we need to bring that back up?
Yes, now you will vote on the policy with just the 2 members voting.
Okay, so Commissioner Jenkins, I'll entertain a motion that we entertain a motion from the Human Resource Department to approve policy 4-300, the insurance and retirement benefits policy.
So moved.
I have a motion, and I will second that. Thank you. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
Thank you. I just saw this as one of those matters where the procedure was very critical.
Now, thank you, Mr. Crockett. We appreciate your professionalism and making sure now we're legal. Commissioners, I'll entertain a motion for item J. We're adjourned.